What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Laughing Man Network's Fantasycast. Week 6 is done and in the books. It's time to move on to Week 7. We're going to get into stop, drop, and roll. We're going to get into waivers, figure out how we can adjust our roster to get into the meat of the season coming up. It's kind of a down week. My Cowboys lost to the Eagles. Shout out to Port. It was a good game, but next time we're going to have Dak, so look forward to that in Week 16. We're coming back for you, Philly. I hope everybody had a good fantasy week. I kind of had a mixed week again, doing pretty well in Dynasty. Redrafts up and down, dealing with injuries is tough. So we're going to get into waivers here, see if there's anybody we need to pick up, see if anybody is out there that can help us win a few games, get back into the playoff hunt. So we got to start off with injuries. Starting off, we got Hollywood Brown. He had a foot injury. He's getting reevaluated. Looks like he's going to miss at least 6 weeks. They're saying that it could have possibly been the season. Could still be. So Hollywood, sorry to hear that, but is what it is. Injuries are rough. Randall Cobb, high ankle sprain. He's going to be out a few weeks. I'm pretty sure nobody was out there really starting Randall Cobb. Kenny Pickett, he got a concussion. Trubisky came back in the game. Keep an eye on that. Until further notice, I'm not interested in starting Pittsburgh Steelers quarterbacks. But if you have to, keep an eye on it. Cameron Brate went off the field in a stretcher. I think it was a concussion. He got a concussion the week before also. Expect Cameron Brate to be out for a little bit. Cade Otton looks like he's going to be the next man up for Tampa Bay. So get well, Cameron Brate. Hopefully, again, they can get this concussion thing figured out as far as how long they're going to be out for. Hopefully he's out at least a week, though. It looked pretty bad. All right, for our first segment, we got stop, drop, and roll. Again, these are guys that end of your roster. You need to go ahead and cut ties with, move on, get another piece of artillery in there, someone that can help you out, have a little upside. First up, I'm looking at Chase Edmonds. He's still 66% owned. He only got 4 opportunities this past week. He scored 5 points. I'm just not interested in Chase Edmonds anymore. If you can just get him tossed into a deal, move up at a position, wide receiver, another running back or something, just move on from Chase Edmonds. Even if you have to drop him, I won't even be mad at you in 10, 12-man leagues. It doesn't look like he's getting the usage we hoped for, so let's just move on. Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore is 62% owned. He's 7.5 targets a game, but he's got a 9-point high on the season. He's not getting what we hoped for. Just New York Jets receivers, they can't figure out who the number 1 is right now. I'm willing to just throw Elijah Moore in on a trade if you have to cut him to get some points on your roster. I know bye weeks are tough. I'm willing to if, you got to cut ties. Kenneth Gainwell, it's 32% owned. I know after last year we had some hope that he was going to have a big season this year, but they're using Miles Sanders more. Jalen Hurts is running a little more. They're still using Boston Scott. I'm not interested in keeping Gainwell in redraft. He's, like I said, 32% owned. He's playing 23% of snaps on average. He's only averaging 4 touches a game. Don't bother holding on to Gainwell. Move on. Find some points. James Cook. James Cook is 37% owned. He got 2 touches this past week. That's not going to cut anything. You can't even flex him. You can't even fill him in on a bye week on something like that. He had a decent week the week before. He got a touchdown, but that was a game that they blew the other team out. They were scoring touchdowns. They were getting their backups in. You can't trust James Cook, not until you see the usage. The only running back that you should have from the Bills is Devin Singletary. So don't hold on to James Cook. DJ Shark, 33% owned. Just go ahead and drop him. You got Jameson Williams coming back any week now. You're going to have Reynolds and Khalif Raymond still there. They have a good history with Jared Goff. And now Amon-Ra's healthy. You have Swift coming back. You have Hawkinson getting involved. Just go ahead and cut ties with Chart. I don't see it happening in Detroit. Julio Jones, he's 43% owned. At this point, you probably need some help at your flex with bye weeks and such. There's just no telling when he's coming back. They won't give us a date. Just if you have to, you can go ahead and get rid of Julio Jones. See if somebody who's winning has room at the back end of the roster. Just go ahead and give them Julio Jones. If they're already winning, it's not gonna help them anyway. So get somebody off their bench maybe, or move up somewhere that can help you now get into the playoffs. Next up, we got Nyheim Hines. He's still 57% owned. He was pretty owned before the JT injury, but Nyheim Hines just isn't that guy. I don't think he scored 10 points. He's got one 10-point game. Just go ahead and cut ties. Even if he's healthy, Deion Jackson showed that he can take the full workload. They were even using Lindsey. Just move on from Hines. He's not going to be worth rostering when you can have somebody with some upside. Gibson, let's move on from Gibson. Brian Robinson came right in from his gunshot wounds, took over as starting running back. Go ahead, throw Gibson in on something just to make it look a little better. Or if you have to, go ahead and swap him out with somebody. If they have a breakout on waivers this week, next week, go ahead and break ties with Gibson if you need to. Jerick McKinnon. Jerick McKinnon is 19% owned. It's gone down, but make sure you're getting rid of McKinnon. You don't need him anymore. Looks like his usage isn't going up. He's averaging 5.5 opportunities a game, and that's not going to really get you much. Maybe later down the season, if you have a bye week, absolutely, need a running back, deep league, 14, 16 team. I guess you could, but anything lower than that, go ahead and cut ties. All right, now we know who it's safe to get rid of. So now we're going to get into our waivers. For week 7 waivers, we're going to start off with quarterback. I'm going to start off with Heineke. He's 0 to 5% owned at the moment. Carson Wentz looks awful. I don't know if they thought about a quarterback switch, but if you're in a really deep league, super flex, you have 14 teams, 16 team, go ahead and stash Heineke, have him at the bottom of your bench. If you play 7, 8 bench spots or something, it wouldn't hurt to have him. He's a mobile quarterback. He's kind of like a Gardner Minshew. If you have a super flex league that runs deep, he may be able to help you down the line if Wentz gets benched, or if you own Wentz and you've been having to start him, have Heineke down there at the bottom, back him up just like you would one of your top running backs, and just cross your fingers you never have to use him. But this is a move only if you have the bench space and don't spend anything. All right, guys, quick edit. It looks like we're going to have an injury to Wentz. He hurt his hand. Looks like we may end up having Heineke for our starting quarterback for Washington for a while. Maybe the whole season. So I guess go out there, spend a little bit, get Heineke, and hope for the best if you need help in your super flex. Tyler Huntley, he's 3% owned. We're getting into that part of the season where we have bye weeks. It's the meat of the season. You're going to have some jockeying for position. If you have a deep bench and you have Lamar Jackson, I'm willing to go grab Huntley and hold him at the bottom just in case you have Lamar Jackson out there doing a lot. If he has to miss some games, Huntley is going to be a very valuable asset, especially in Superflex. So if you have the space, if you're winning games already, you don't need that extra bench spot, go ahead and stash Huntley now. For the third quarterback, I'm going the same thing, Bailey Zappi. If you have Mac Jones, go ahead, put him at the bottom of your bench just in case they make a swap or Mac Jones isn't healthy. Bailey Zapp came out. He had 300 yards. I think it was 320 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's mobile. He's a little more mobile than Mac Jones. So if you deep super flex 14 team, go ahead and put Zappy at the bottom of your bench. Once again, on these quarterbacks, you're not spending anything. Zappy, maybe a few bucks. but that's just to keep you in it with the other people. Otherwise, don't spend anything. Zero, maybe $1. Now for running backs, I'm looking at Latavius Murray. He's 18% owned. If you don't want to spend anything and you may need a flex later down the line, you don't trust Melvin Gordon's health. He had a pretty decent game filling in for the Saints. I think he may take some touches from Boone. He actually won me a few weeks last year in Dynasty. Sometimes it gets gritty. So if you can go get him for $0, throw him at the bottom of your bench. If you're in a deep league, 14 team especially, go ahead and grab Latavius Murray. It won't hurt anything for you to go and see what that usage is going to be. Other Denver running back, we're looking at Boone, 46% owned. Maybe spend a few bucks on him. He's used in the passing game. He got 10 opportunities in week 5. He's getting used alongside Gordon. And if you're going to get PPR out of a split running back, I'm willing to take that chance at the bottom of my roster. So go ahead and get Mike Boone and hope for the best. Attention, Jonathan Taylor owners. If you don't already own Deion Jackson, go get him. He's 50% owned at the moment. He's going to be more. Anybody else who's hurting at running back, you're week to week. Even if you don't have JT, go get Deion Jackson if JT's looking like he's not going to play again. Deion Jackson had 22 touches, 28 points. He had 10 targets. Used in the passing game. This is why I said you don't have to bother with Naheem Hines. Deion Jackson is getting used in the passing game now. So Deion Jackson's my handcuff for JT. If you have JT, go spend some money, get Deion Jackson, because somebody else is going to spend on him too. And you might as well have that handcuff later down the line, especially if this injury is going to nag JT for the rest of the season. Wide receivers, looking at Nico Collins. I said him last week. He's 19% owned. His snaps are up to 80%. He's getting 10 points of 3 of the past 4 games. I think he scored 15 points, one of them. Go ahead and get Nico Collins. Brandon Cooks still draws some attention. I think Nico is going to continue to have his snap share go up till he's playing just about as many snaps as Brandon Cooks, and I think his target share is going to go up as well. And they're always going to be playing from behind. So go ahead with the Texans, Nico Collins. Wan'Dale Robinson for the Giants. He's 20% owned. This past week, he had three or four catches, had 37 yards and a touchdown, 12.5 points. Not a great game, not an awful game, especially in your flex. They don't really know what's going on in New York with their wide receivers. You have Galladay, who's always in and out, Tony, who's in and out, Shepard's hurt. They drafted Wan'Dale Robinson to be that gadget guy to break open plays. So look for him to get a little more involved. Deep leagues especially, if you have room, deep bench, go ahead and put him at the bottom of your bench and see what happens. Odell Beckham Jr. He's 22% owned. He's not back yet, but he's been courting with teams lately. We've been talking about the Rams. We've been talking about the Packers, the Bills, the Chiefs. These are all teams that can produce points, and I'm willing to go get Odell Beckham, especially if I'm winning and I can drop somebody off the bottom of my bench. Go get him now, and you might be able to get at least a nice boom or bust wide receiver 3 down the stretch. Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce is 52% owned. If you didn't get him last week, if he still ended up on waivers this week, go ahead and spend some money and get him. He's what Paris Campbell was supposed to be. We said to go get him last week. He's getting 7 targets a game the past 3 games, and he's 14 points a game the past few games. Go ahead and get Alec Pierce. Spend some money on him. Go spend 10%, 12%, 15% even, especially in a deeper league. Deeper league, you're going to spend a little more on a guy like that that's been producing. So go ahead and get Alec Pierce. I'm completely okay with that. See if we can get his name right this time. Ben Skowronek. Go get Ben Skowronek. Just like a running back, you're handcuffing, just like a Madison or something like that, especially cup owners. Go ahead and get him. He's 5% owned. He's averaging 87% of snaps. He's got 16.5 points this past weekend. Go ahead and get him. I'm willing to drop somebody off the bottom of my bench that's not doing anything, like Allen Robinson. I'd rather Skoranek. Even after Allen Robinson had a decent game, go ahead and get him, especially cup owners. Go handcuff your big time wide receiver because this guy, I think, profiles to be just like a cup if he were to go down. So go get him now and hope you never need him, but he's worth holding on to. And last wide receiver I'm going to go with on waivers. We've been saying drop him, cut him for weeks now, but I think now you should go on waivers. He's only about 17% owned. Get Robbie Anderson. Since the Hollywood injury, Carolina Panthers went and traded Robbie Anderson to the Arizona Cardinals. So now Robbie's possibly going to be playing with the best quarterback he's ever had. So I guess we're going to give him another chance. So if he's on your waivers, pretty sure he is, go ahead and grab him. Spend some money on him. I'd be willing to go 15% maybe, just to make sure if he does break out, you have a pretty good wide receiver down the stretch. We've seen flashes from him in the past, but now he gets the best quarterback he's ever had. So maybe playing second fiddle to DeAndre Hopkins opens up a little bit for him. Maybe he can produce you some wide receiver 3 value again. So go ahead and get Robbie Anderson and hope for the best. Tight ends, I'm looking at Schultz. I know Schultz is probably owned in most of your leagues. He's 75% owned, but over the past few weeks with Cooper Rush, some managers may have gotten frustrated and dropped him. He got hurt. He might have not shown up on the projecteds because he was hurt. If he's on waivers, go get him. Dak Prescott's coming back. Go get Dalton Schultz. Spend a nice bit on him, 15, 20%, and hope that he gets that connection back with Dak for the rest of the season. Cade Otton, we talked about Cameron Brate, how he's hurt. He may be out a few weeks, and this may be Otton's chance to take over the role. He's 9% owned. Go ahead and get him. He was really good in college. Tom Brady can make anybody look good. So if you're deep league, especially maybe 12 team, 14 team, 16 team, make sure Cade Otton is owned, and you may end up having a nice back end tight end 1, top end tight end 2 down the stretch, especially with the bye weeks coming up. Bellinger for the New York Giants. He's finally getting used. He's 6% owned. He had 10 points and 16 points the past 2 weeks. He even had a rushing touchdown. They're starting to get him involved. They're having trouble at wide receiver. They need to produce some yards. So if you need help at tight end, go ahead and get Bellinger. You probably don't have to spend much on him. Just like all these other tight ends outside of Schultz, don't have to spend much. I'm willing to go ahead and get Bellinger. You might even be able to flex him some weeks because of the way they use him. Evan Ingram. I bring up Evan Ingram like I'm a truther, but again, this is for the back end of your roster, bye week, all those type of issues. Go ahead and get Evan Ingram. He's 37% owned. He's playing 72% of snaps on average. He's getting 8 targets a game the past 3 games. I'm willing to go play him over some of those few top name guys like Kyle Pitts most weeks. They're going to play from behind a lot. If they're wide receivers who aren't that great get covered, Ingram's going to be open, and they're not going to ask him to block much. So go ahead and get Evan Ingram. If you need help at tight end, you have some room at the bottom of your bench, and you're looking ahead for bye weeks, go ahead and grab him. I think he's worth holding on to, and you won't have to spend anything to get him, really. All right, guys, that's going to do it for Week 7 waivers. Tune in again when we go over our sits and starts, buy low, sell high. We're not going to have any guests this week, but look forward to next week where we're going to bring somebody in for buy low, sell high, and our sits and starts then. So make sure you tune in next time. If you have any questions, laughingmanfb@gmail.com. Hit us up in the comments with any questions you have, and we'll see you next time.